Today we're checking out this Jeep licensed by RedRock HD rear bumper with LED Jeep logo backlight for the 2018 and newer Jeep Wrangler JLs. If you want an off-road ready look and style, a rear bumper upgrade is one of the best ways to add protection and make the back of the Jeep look more serious at the same time, so this is definitely worth looking into. One of the top features on this one has got to be the red illuminated LED Jeep logo, which is a really nice detail that just looks awesome overall, especially at night, and it makes the rear end stand out with a clean factory plus style while showing off your Jeep pride. This rear bumper is built to give your JL better protection and a more rugged stance, especially compared to the factory setup that's really not meant for hard hits. You're getting a full-width, heavy-duty bumper that's designed for real-world off-road use, and it comes with high-strength D-ring mounts plus a set of 9,500-pound rated D-rings, so you've got real recovery points ready to go whenever you need them. It's also compatible with those factory backup sensors, which is a big deal because you can keep that modern convenience without giving up any of the features. Another nice practical detail is it's going to accommodate a 33-inch spare tire with this cutout, so it works well with a lot of common tire setups. Now when it comes to the build on this, you are getting heavy-duty steel plate construction finished in a premium 2-stage texture black powder coat with an epoxy pre-coating for long-term durability. These D-ring mounts are built for strength and real recoveries, and the laser-cut Jeep logo is backlit with modern red LEDs for that standout look without having to sacrifice function. Now, as far as the pricing goes on this, it's coming in right around that low 500s price range. For a heavy-duty steel rear bumper that includes high-strength D-rings, keeps backup sensor compatibility, and adds the LED Jeep logo backlight detail, this is a solid value compared to cheaper bumpers that don't include recovery hardware and they don't have the same overall finish and protection. When it comes to the install on this one, it's going to get rated an easy 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. You can have this job done in just 2 hours or less of your time if everything goes smooth, since it reuses the factory mounting locations to simplify the installation. Now let's head on out to the shop, and we're going to give you a detailed walkthrough of exactly how this install process goes.
For this install, you will need various impacts, a ratchet, an extension, a 3/8 to 1/2 inch adapter if necessary, a 5mm long head Allen socket, 8, 10, 16, 18, and 21mm sockets, 10, 13, and 18mm wrenches, the provided Allen wrenches, wire strippers and crimpers, and also not shown here, an extra set of hands, and your provided inline taps or T-taps and spade connectors. All right, today we're going to be installing a rear bumper on our Wrangler, but before we get started, we're going to send you to watch a quick video on how to remove your factory bumper, and we'll see you when you get back.
So our first step is going to be to get our spare tire out of the way. Now you have a Mopar toolkit in your JL, so you're going to need the T40 Torx bit and the ratchet out of that kit. And we're going to go ahead and remove the cover off of our camera so we can slide our spare tire off. So first thing we have to do is take this T40 Torx and just unlock this cover. Once it's unlocked, we can just pull back on that, and then we'll be able to get our spare tire off. So this step is going to depend on what lug nuts you have on your Wrangler. I'm using our lug nut key as well as a 7/8 inch socket, and I'm going to remove our lug nuts on our JL. So once those 3 lug nuts are off, we can fully remove our spare tire. So our next step is going to be inside this wheel well here. We have to remove a trim piece in order to expose the bolts that are holding on our bumper onto our frame. Now you are going to need an 8mm socket as well as a ratchet to get that off, and we can head underneath the Jeep. So there are going to be 3 bolts holding on this trim piece. There's going to be 1 at the front and then 2 in the rear. I'm going to start with this one in the front with my 8mm deep socket. You can also use a hand ratchet as well. I'm just using an air ratchet just to speed up the process. Now we're going to take out the back 2 bolts. So now I can remove this trim piece, get it out of the way, and that's going to expose these 2 bolts on the frame. So now I'm going to remove these 2 frame bolts using a 16mm socket. Now we can repeat that process on the other side. So you can do this next step one of two ways to fully remove the bumper. What I'm gonna do is remove the bumper from the primary bracket here. You can remove the bracket from the frame, but to give you guys a better visual of what we're gonna do next, I'm going to remove the bumper from the bracket with a 16mm socket. So while we're also on the driver's side, we want to make sure to disconnect our harness that is for the license plate light. So I'm just going to press that tab down and pull that away. Now we can move over to the other side and remove our 2 bolts on our bumper bracket. So now we can remove our rear bumper. So you are gonna have to wiggle those side brackets around the frame. It may kick off the little spring clips that we're holding on those bolts for the trim piece. However, we can wiggle that off. So our next step is just to take this bracket off. This was originally attached to our bumper. Like I said, there was 2 different ways to do this. You could either take the bolts out of the frame, or you could take the bolts out of the bumper. I wanted to give you guys a better visual, so I took the bolts out of the bumper, but I'm going to use a 21mm socket in my impact to remove these 2 bolts on the passenger side. So for the driver's side, you're gonna have 2 of the same bolts that you had on the passenger side on the side here, and then you're gonna have 2 at the bottom since we do have the tow hook on the driver's side. So I'm gonna take that 21mm socket, remove those side bolts, and then we'll remove the bottom bolts. All right, so we can finagle this bracket out. Then we can remove these 2 bottom bolts that are holding in the rest of our tow hook. Make sure you have a hand on your tow hook. This is gonna fall once you remove that last bolt, but it's gonna be that same 21mm socket.
All right, welcome back. Now that we have our factory bumper off, it's time to start installing our new setup. The first thing we're gonna do is grab our provided double nut plate, shaped like a U. That's gonna go into the rear of our right-hand side frame horn. It's gonna line up with our 2 factory holes where our bumper mounted. Slide that right in like so. We wanna make sure our 2 nuts line up with those holes. Next up, we're gonna install our provided hitch receiver. This is gonna line up with our 4 cross member holes. Now this is intended for a very tight fit, so we may need a rubber mallet to get this in place. We're gonna see how it goes first. As you can see, it got some of the way up. We'll grab our mallet and tap this into place. Now we've got our mallet. We're gonna tap right in the middle. So as you can see, we've got our first bolt hole pretty close. We're gonna work that up just a hair more. Then we'll get our first bolt in. That'll prevent it from pivoting down, and we'll be able to get the rest in. Now we'll take our provided 16mm bolt with a flat washer, put this through. And to the back side of that, we're gonna add a flat washer, lock washer, and nut. Now we'll work this up and get the rest of our bolts in just like this one. Now we've got all our bolt holes lined up. We'll get our other 3 provided bolts in. followed by the rest of our washers and nuts. And once you get your first couple in, you can do the same thing for the rest of your bolts. Now that we have all of our hardware in, we're going to grab our 18mm socket on our impact and an 18mm open end wrench and tighten all these down. All right, so now we've got our bumper in position. We're gonna put it in place, and for the driver's side, we're gonna reuse our 4 21mm bolts. For the passenger side, we're gonna reuse our original 2 21mm bolts, as well as 2 of our provided bolts with lock washers and flat washers. I've got an extra set of hands. We're gonna get this in place and get our hardware on. All right, so now we'll get our 2 provided bolts into the bottom of our passenger side. And we want to line that up with that nut plate we installed earlier. As you can see, we've got our 2 OEM bolts in the side, and we'll get our other 2 in on the other side, and then we'll come back and tighten everything down. Now we're going to grab our 21mm socket on our impact and tighten these down. For these bottom 2, we're going to need to add an extension. Once you got this side tight, you can do the same thing on the other side. Now your kit does come with provisions as well as mounting slots for your parking sensors. If you have parking sensors, we do not, so we're just going to install these supplied sensor plugs. That's just going to be popping these in just like so, and once you got your first one in, you can do the same thing for the other 3. All right, next we're going to install our provided tag bracket. So we're going to grab our 2 provided 5mm Allen head bolts with flat washers. We're going to line our bracket up. Now you want the L to face outwards. We'll get it into our 2 mounting holes on our bumper, and we'll have to kind of hold these in place. And what we're going to do is grab our provided flat washer and lock nut and reach underneath the bumper and get those on. It's pretty hard to see, but it's just a nice open spot right here underneath the bumper in this section. All right, so now we're going to grab a 13mm wrench, and I've got a long head 5mm Allen socket on my ratchet. We're going to get these tightened down. Tighten this one down as well. All right, so next we're going to install our provided tag lights. Now these come with the mounting nut and washer on the stud. We're going to need to take those off and fully remove them from the wiring. Take those off. What we're going to do is send our wires through these top mounting holes first, like so. Then we can reinstall our washer and nut. Get these back up into position. You want to make sure your tag lights are facing down towards your tag. Once we have that on, we're just going to take our 10mm open end wrench and snug these down. Once you have your first one on, we'll do the same thing for the other side. All right, so now we can wire in our tag lights. Now, obviously from factory, you only have 2 wires going into your 1 tag light. Here we have 2 positives and 2 negatives. So what we're gonna do is filter those down into a single connector for each. Now your kit does come with inline taps. However, to keep this modular, and because we already have these on here, we're gonna use T-taps and spade connectors. The way these T-taps work is you have a metal saddle in the middle. You're gonna wrap that into your factory wire and clamp that down, and then we can get our spade connectors on and plug into that. So that's what we're gonna do. So first, we're gonna need to pull apart our two wires a little bit. And we'll grab our strippers, expose some of our wiring. I wanna do this for both of our lights. So now I've isolated both of my positive wires for my tag lights, and what we're gonna do is just twist them together like so. We're gonna add in our male spade connector. Set that like that. We'll grab our crimpers. I like to give a little tug just to make sure we've got a solid crimp. Then we'll do the same thing for our negative wires. Now that we have both of these crimped, we're going to bring back our factory harness. All right, so now we're going to plug our red wire into our white wire with a blue stripe. It's a positive. Again, these spade connectors just plug right into the T-taps and our black to black. Once we have this wired in, we can tuck this back down under. You can secure this up under your vehicle however you'd like. Just make sure it's out of the way of anything hanging or moving. Now once you have this all mounted up, you can mount whatever tag you have. Then we're gonna mount our D-rings. So we'll remove our pin, get this lined up with our mount, send our pin through, snug that down, and we can do the same thing for the other side. All right, so next we're gonna need to run all of our wiring and our switch for our light up logo on our bumper. So we're gonna head up to the engine bay, get this all hooked up, run the harness back, and then we'll get it plugged in. All right, so now we've got our harness. We're up in the passenger side of our engine bay with our hood open. The first thing we're gonna do is run our connector and our harness part that's gonna go to our back bumper down through our engine bay, just so it's out of the way and we can begin running it when we're ready. I'm gonna take our connector that's gonna go to our light, and it's gonna be hard to see, but there is a space right behind your battery, in between your battery and your fender. So we're gonna drop that down. You wanna kinda keep your harness straight while you're doing this. You don't want it to get all tangled up. Then eventually you will see your connector end pop out of behind your fender liner. We'll grab that and we'll just pull this the rest of the way through. All right, so now we're down in our fender well. We've got our connector side of our harness. We'll pull this through. So next we're gonna take our switch end of our harness and we're just gonna send it over to the driver's side of our engine bay for now. Kind of just drape this across. Then we're left with our two terminals for our battery and our fuse. What we're gonna do is actually remove this fuse for the time being to keep the circuitry dead until we're ready to turn it on. So pop our cover off, pop our fuse out. We'll just set this right in here for now. All right, so now we're gonna connect our positive and negative terminals to our battery. So I've got my 10 mil socket on my impact. Remove the 10 mil nut on our positive terminal first. Once we get our terminal on, reinstall our nut. Tighten that down. We'll grab our negative terminal and remove the 10 millimeter nut. Install our terminal. Install our nut. Tighten that back down. All right, so now we can reinstall our fuse. Close our cover back up. tuck our excess wiring down and out of the way. Then we'll go to the other side and get our switch through to our cab. All right, so now we're gonna run our switch through to our cab. Now, this is gonna be very difficult to see unless you're right here, but there is a grommet located between your brake booster and your fender wall. So what we're gonna do is grab our switch, send that through, feed that in as much as we can. And once we have that through, we'll mount it in our cab. And as for your excess wiring out in the engine bay, you can feel free to secure this up out of the way however you'd like. Just remember to keep it out of the way of any hot or moving parts. All right, so now we've come to the driver's side footwell of our cab. We're gonna reach right up alongside of our kick panel and grab our switch and pull that out into our mounting area. Now that we've got this out, this mounts with an adhesive backing, so we'll remove the cover. And you can mount this wherever you want. We're just gonna go right here, stick that in place. All right, so now we just need to route the rest of our harness back to our rear bumper and plug it in. So we're gonna go along the frame rail of our Jeep here, and then we're gonna keep it tucked out of the way as we go back. You wanna keep this out of the way of your exhaust because you don't want this melting in the process. So run this along, secure it up out of the way as we go, and then plug it in at our light at our rear bumper. All right, so now we're gonna route our wiring, and one of the easiest ways to keep this up and out of the way is to go over top of your body mount brackets on your frame. So we'll take our connector, run that over our front body mount. Pull this through. Make sure your harness does not get tangled in the process. So now we're going to do the same thing over top of our rear body mount. Once you have this through, you want to pull your harness through just like we did with the front, and then we'll get to the back bumper. All right, so now we're back at the rear wheel. We've got our harness over top of our axle. That's very important. We're going to send our connector behind our shock and then directly over our frame towards the center of our rear bumper. Now we can plug our connector in. Once you've got that connected, you can secure the excess amount of your harness up out of the way however you'd like. Again, just a reminder, keep it out of the way of any hot or moving parts. All right, now once you've got everything buttoned up, you can reinstall whatever spare tire you are using. Alrighty, that about wraps up our review and install of our Jeep licensed by RedRock HD rear bumper with LED Jeep logo backlight for your 18 to current Jeep Wrangler JL. Thanks for watching, and as always, for everything Wrangler, keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.